air. Yes, lightsabers up in the air. Because, you know why. Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Star Wars trilogy. Guess what? He's here. He is here. And he's done Train Spotting, Moulin Rouge. Y'all know what Scotsman I'm talking about. Please welcome to the stage moderator Tiffany Babb and Ewan Mcgregor!
Yeah, I've just been stuck behind a black curtain all day. I didn't know that this was all out here, you know. Little man road over there. How's it going? Good. All right.
You have recently returned to the world of Star Wars. What has that been like to go back into it?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been really like a relief almost, you know. It was a long time ago that we made the last prequel. In 2003 we shot the last one. So to come back, I guess it was like almost 20 years later, but it felt good. It felt I really liked making the series with Deborah Chow, who's just a brilliant director and was a great leader of that. She directed all of those episodes. And she really understands the world of Star Wars, and she really honed the script. She did all the work on working with the writers to sort of hone the series. And I think she did a brilliant job, and it was lovely to work with her, and a great cast. And yeah, it was good. It was good fun.
Did you feel like you were returning to the same character, or did you feel like it was a different character now that it's been years?
Well, yeah, no, it felt like it had to be the same. It felt like the same character, just older and a bit tireder, you know. I don't know where I drew that from, but yeah, no, I very much felt like it had to be him. And I always think of, I mean, when I did the first ones, I must have been like 25 or 6 or something when we started. And the challenge there was to be Alec, to be a young Alec Guinness. And so I always start with Alec. It's such a lovely job to have, to sit and watch his movies. And that's where I always start. So that's what I did this time. I started watching Alec Guinness I watched all the Star Wars films, all of them. I hadn't necessarily seen all the sequels, so I watched all 9 films, and then I went back and then I studied Alec's. I got them to put Alec's scenes together for me, just his scenes. And then I would watch that and watch that and watch that. And for me, it just has to feel like him when I'm doing a take as Obi-Wan. If it's a bit like I can imagine Alec in the room, then I'm happy. And if it doesn't, I'll always ask for another go. I'm not trying to impersonate him, but just like it has to feel like him a bit.
It's a vibe thing.
Yes, exactly.
Speaking of the original trilogy, your uncle, Dennis Lawson, played Wedge Antilles. When you
Look at the size of that thing.
When you first got cast, did you call him up and ask him for advice?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, my uncle was my acting sort of, he's my hero anyway, and he was an actor. I came from a very small town in Scotland, and it's not really the kind of place you would imagine becoming an actor from, But my uncle had done it. He grew up there, and he went off to become an actor in the theatre and then on television, and then he made his film. Does anyone remember Local Hero? The movie Local Hero? It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, it's worth a watch. It's a really, really good film. And that was his sort of biggest movie role. And somewhere in the middle of all that mix, he did a few weeks on Star Wars. You know, I think they got. But George shot the first ones in London, you know, in Elstree, I think, and so all of the London-based actors got cast in little parts and stuff. And so my uncle ended up as Wedge, and he actually survived all the first three movies, you know. I can't remember if they brought him back for the sequel or if they used his voice. I think maybe they shot with him for a day. Yes, of course, I spoke to him about it, and it was an odd one. You might think it would be like a no-brainer, but it wasn't a no-brainer for me at the time. I'd only done 4 or 5, 6 movies, and I was involved in Danny Boyle's. I felt like Danny Boyle's actor. You know, I made Shallow Grave with Danny, and then we made Trainspotting, and then we made a third film called A Life Less Ordinary here in the States. And I felt like more than anything I was Danny Boyle's actor. That was really like the most important thing to me. I felt like I was part of something new and important. Like Shallow Grave left a mark on British cinema, and Trainspotting left a mark on global cinema. And so that was my priority, and I fancied myself as somewhat of a sort of indie, urban, grungy type actor. And I still rather do, I think. But so this was a departure, Star Wars, and also just the idea of it was so massive. You can imagine as a young actor, you know, that it had been a long, long time since the last of the original movies. I don't remember what year that was. Someone will know. I mean, somebody must know. Thank you. 83? Okay, so it's been since 83, and we were in the 90s, weren't they? Late 90s when we were starting to do the prequels. So it's been a long time, so the pressure of that, and so it was important to speak to Dennis about it. I wouldn't necessarily tell you what he said because it wasn't entirely positive, but anyway. He's at the moment doing one of these in Nashville. He's doing a Comic-Con in Nashville now. So, you know, we're both Comic-Conning around now, Dennis and I. It's nice.
Have you done a show together yet?
Yes, we have. We did. We were both in San Francisco together, and we did one in Edinburgh together, and that has been really fun. Yeah, it's been nice.
Was the transition from being a Danny Boyle actor to Star Wars, was that cute? Was that weird? Going on set and it's a whole different kind of production?
I mean, I think as an actor, every job is different from the last. At least it should be. And so they're always different. Every role demands a different part of you, and every role has different sort of technicalities involved. This was the first film like this this is the only thing like this. So, but it was the first time I'd ever done this much sort of blue screen work, or you know, acting with things that aren't there. Work, you know, with a tennis ball and a stick, and then, or you know, that was the first time I'd ever done that kind of work. But I think the responsibility is always the same. You always just have to be believable in that role, in that story, and so everything's always going to feel different. It didn't feel like a different job. I didn't have to be a different actor or anything. No, I don't think so.
You've done a lot of Star Wars now, especially with the show. Is there anything in the Star Wars universe that you would like to do that you haven't done yet?
Obi-Wan Season 2. Someone booing? Someone booed. Who booed? You don't want it? He doesn't want Season 2. I don't know this guy. I don't know. I think there's definitely a couple of things. I quite like to wear that armor. I was speaking to someone earlier from the Clone Wars. I think that would be something that I'd enjoy. But I was figuring out with someone in the autograph queue today that would mean I'd have to be young. You know, I'd have to be younger. But they can do. No. I'm good. Okay.
Popular choice.
Anyone just turn the beard a bit or something? Yeah. Otherwise, it's like having those, just the DHing, it's the dots on your face for 3 months, you know? But I'll do it, I don't care. I think, yeah. And that way, Hayden and I can really get back together again. Okay, so there's that. So there's definitely that was one idea, and the other one is obviously between the end of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series and when Alec Guinness is Obi-Wan Kenobi. There's got to be another few stories in there, and we're definitely hoping, well, exploring that. I think would be the word to say.
Exciting.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I'll take you with me when I go to see Disney. Say, okay, we'll come coming back.
So you've been in a lot of movies with big stylistic visions, like Big Fish, Moulin Rouge, Beginners. What is it like performing in a movie with a very specific stylistic vision versus something more naturalistic?
It's all the same. I always try and find. I think I've always been looking for something that's got a little bit sort of extra, either sort of magical quality or, you know, like with Moulin Rouge, the music and just the sort of romance of it. There's something that really appealed to me, like in the old films that I used to watch when I was a kid. I love it. So I'm always looking for something that's got that little extra quality. But the job is always the same, you know. Like I say, there's a writer that writes something, and that's what we read. That's what the director reads, and that informs us as to what is this? What world are we in? What the sort of nature of the thing? And then so everything is unique, really. So there's some things you approach where you have to learn something, like, I don't know, you have to learn the bagpipes, or you have to learn to unicycle, or you have to learn French or something in order to play this character. And then there's other things, times where you're playing somebody that's actually lived. You know, you're playing somebody who's real. I've done that a few times. Played Halston, who was a real person. 3 people. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. Thank you, those 3 people. And in the past, I played Nick Leeson, who was a trader that brought down Barings Bank. So when you're playing somebody who's actually existed, then you can watch their videos or read their writing or whatever. And that's that. And then other things you just come straight out of your imagination. So there's different sort of lead up to roles, but at the onset is always the same job, I guess.
It's really interesting. Speaking of unique movies, you played Sebastian Ray Cricket in Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, or you voiced him. I read that the role was smaller before you signed on. Is that true?
I don't know. This is how I think it was just about lockdown when I recorded the song for Pinocchio in a caravan in my garden with a mic during lockdown, because we just had to do everything remotely, you know. But when I went in to see Guillermo to do the first, I thought I was just going in for a meeting to meet him, to talk about it. I hadn't been sent the script or anything, so I thought, well, he must just want to talk to me about it. So I arrived at the sound studio up near where the studios are in Hollywood. And I walked in, and I was in a recording studio, and there was loads of people behind the glass. And Guillermo was like, "Hey, how you doing? It's nice to see you." He takes me to the lectern where there's the script and the microphone, and he goes, "Just go start in your own time." I made a big mistake, because I didn't tell him. I just thought, okay, I'm just going to do it. I had no idea. I didn't know who this Jiminy Cricket was. I knew who the other one, the old one, was, but so I just started to sort of blag my way through it as best I could until I realized that I was going nowhere, and I stopped him and I said, "Guillermo, can I speak to you in here?" And he came in. I was almost in tears, like I was so embarrassed. And he sat down and I said, "Guillermo, I haven't read the script. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just making it up." And he did a lovely thing. He just sent everyone away for a minute, and he sat down and he told me his version of what he was trying to do. He sort of pitched me the story, told me about how he saw the character, and then I knew what I was doing. Then, you know, I knew at least who I was trying to play, and then we got on with it. And a lot of what you hear in the film is from that original, you know, I had like 5 minutes preparation for it, you know. But it was fun. I love him, and I love the films he's made. I've always been a big fan of his work, and so I'm so lucky to get to work with him.
It's a beautiful film. So you sang, you just mentioned singing. You sang in this film. You sang in Moulin Rouge. You once played Sky Masterson in Guys and Dolls.
Yes.
Will you do another musical?
I would love to. I just haven't been offered any. I mean, it's not like I haven't wanted to do it. There aren't many around. I mean, there's not many musical movies made. There are some. And I would love it. I tell you what, there was nothing like singing on set of Moulin Rouge. I'll never forget walking through the tango with the dancers going side to side, you know, and all that angst. And I loved it. I loved doing it. So yeah, I would hope there will be more. I just don't know. They just haven't come my way yet, but maybe they will.
Fingers crossed. Now that it's out in the universe. Oh,
Yeah.
Speaking of singing, you also did Down the Club with Renee Zellweger. Thank you, baby. This question feels very for me at this moment. You mentioned you're a fan of old Hollywood. Are you a big classic movie fan? Is that?
Yes. I mean, I just grew up watching movies, and I love watching. I am a bit nostalgic, I think, so I do love watching older movies. And yeah, definitely loved all those comedies, Rock Hudson, Doris Day, you know, Pillow Talk, all of those. I love them. I sort of got it. When I read Down the Love, I knew what it was about. Yeah, I certainly did. And it's nice. Peyton Reed, the director, is still a good friend of mine. Renee, I see now and again. I'm always happy to see her when I do. And yeah, it was a great experience making that film. It was something really, again, with that sort of extra layer of magic on top that I'm always hoping to find.
And you did a big dance number in that. I was wondering, training, and you were kind of talking about this earlier, but training for a big dance number versus training for a fight, is it very different? Is it the same? Or are you just kind of following along?
Well, I think the fight rehearsals for the latest Obi-Wan series were really intense. And we went for like a good few months before we started filming. We were working in a fight gym 3 times a week, just for fitness as much as anything else, but also learning, drilling all the moves, all the different, you know, it was really well done. Jojo, our fight coordinator, did a really amazing job at sort of training us, and then slowly learning the choreography for the fights. And then once you start learning the choreography, it does become a bit like learning a dance. It's the same, you know. You have to be in the right place at the right time on the right leg, and you know. So it's similar in a way. Yeah, it just doesn't hurt quite as much when you get it wrong in a dance as it does with a lightsaber. Hayden and I will tell you, like in the prequels, our knuckles were like, because we were using metal blades on the lightsabers then. We didn't have, they used the plastic, they're not dissimilar to the ones you have here that we fight with now. They actually light up now and stuff, and in the prequels they didn't. We had sort of some alloy blade, and there was a guy on the corner of the set whose job it was to just change the blades after every take. And Hayden and I, particularly Hayden and I, when we fought together, we just bent every take. We'd have to have a new sword, so we'd bend the blades. We just bent at each other really hard. And there's no hilt on these. George Lucas thought we didn't need a hilt in his wisdom. And a hilt stops your knuckles getting wrapped when you get it wrong, but so we didn't have one. We just got sore knuckles all the time. Thank you, George.
What was the biggest technological change between filming the prequels and filming the show?
What was the biggest change?
The lightsabers were different. Were there other like?
Yes, the biggest change was we used that thing called the volume, which is like a 300-degree wraparound. It's probably about as big as this area here, you know, to where you guys are. It wraps around. It's almost 360, but not quite. And the backgrounds are projected onto it. Well, no, they're not projected on it. They're played on it. And when you point a camera at them and move the camera, it alters the depth of field and stuff in the image. And so when you're acting on that stage, there's no blue screen anymore, no green screen, which I'm not a fan of. I don't know if you've ever read any of my interviews about the prequels, but I wasn't a great fan of the blue screen environment. And this just takes it away. Suddenly, if you're in the desert, well, you feel like you're in the desert. Or if you're in, we had in episode 2 or 3 of the series, we were in this big city with towering skyscrapers and stuff, and it felt, you walk in, you're sort of in that environment already. So that was a massive difference. But everything else was, well, on the second episode, the second prequel, we used the first ever digital cameras. And we shot the first one on film, and the second one, we had these early generation digital cameras with huge cables coming out the back of them into a tent in the corner that sort of hummed, It was so new at the time, and now of course we've got digital cameras on our phone. We can shoot Star Wars on that. He's shooting Star Wars on it right now. All right.
In a couple of years, it'll be 30 years of Trainspotting.
There's no need to say that. Okay.
A few years ago, you reunited for T2, but do you all stay in contact? Are you in
Yes. There is a little, because Trainspotting's used in, it crops up all the time. Political campaigns use the poster for Trainspotting. There was one recently in Britain when there was the general election that had all the British MPs, all the Conservative MPs with their heads on our shoulders from the poster, And so there's a little email group with all of us on it that we sort of post, we talk to each other about those kind of things. And so we do keep in touch. We did joke when we did T2, because that was 20 years after we made the first one. We did joke about doing a third one in our 70s, when we're all in the sort of geriatric home for ex-drug users, from Scotland. Back on the drugs, it might be.
Full Monty just did a TV show, so you can always do a Trainspotting.
Yes, there's every opportunity. I hope so. I do love those guys so much, and that film was it was an amazing experience to be in that film, and so we're all bonded together forever, the cast and Danny Boyle, and it's an amazing, I'm very, very proud of that one.
Trainspotting, iconic film, to today, very recently bought a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. What was that day like?
Where's the brewer? Is it someone I've pissed off in the past?
I think it's like a deep blue.
It's a deep what?
It's a deep blue, like it's a cheer.
A woo. It sounds to me like a boo from up here.
Yeah.
Okay. I got a star. Boo.
What was that day like?
Oh, it was fun. It was really. I had no idea what to expect from it. To be honest, I didn't really know what it would mean until I saw it. So they reveal it. The best thing was I had all my family there and my kids. I was with my wife Mary, and Esther, my daughter, wasn't able to be there because she was shooting she's acting in a series in Canada at the time, so she wasn't able to be there. But so that was a great shame, because other than that, I had all my kids there, and it was a real family day. It was really nice. Yeah, it was nice. And when they revealed it, and you see your name down there, it was like a moment. I went, oh God Almighty, that's a star with my name on it. It was good. It's nice, and I like the idea that it's there. And the best thing is, it's right next to Carrie Fisher's.
That's like the perfect star neighbor.
I love Carrie so much. I met Carrie, we became friends, I was so lucky to know her because I loved her so much. As a child, I was deeply in love with her. When I was, as a lot of men my age, probably in this room will say they were as well. And when I met her, we had, of course, I'd done Star Wars by this time, so we had that in common. And she used to make me laugh, so she was so funny. We co-hosted during the Oscars and stuff, there's people throw parties for a movie to try and we ended up co-hosting stuff at her house, which was just always such a laugh. Yeah, it's a great shame that we lost Carrie. Really. But anyway, it's a very, I couldn't believe that I was lucky enough to be right next to her on the Walk of Fame. That's nice.
That's incredible. Star Wars history. It keeps going. Is the amazing thing, right?
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of motorcycle-based projects, documentaries. What drives you to do this long-term motorcycle travel? Like, what is it?
Just like a glutton for punishment or something. I don't know. I started doing. I've always ridden motorbikes. I love riding motorbikes. And I started doing sort of trips after, when I finished a movie. It's so intense making a film. There's so many people around, and also as an actor, all of your sort of decision making as a human being is sort of removed from the equation. So you're told 30 in the morning, and you'll be taken to. You don't have to think about where you're going. You arrive. You know somebody's telling you this is the scenes you're going to shoot. Someone asks you what you'd like for your lunch. You don't have to really think about anything other than the job at hand. I suppose that's why. So at the end of it, there's a sort of reintegration into real life when you have to start doing all those things for yourself again. And I thought, so I started taking motorbike trips. Like the first one I remember was in Australia after Star Wars. No, after Moulin Rouge, or maybe in the middle of Moulin Rouge. Took a long bike trip there. And then after Big Fish in Alabama, I bought myself a Harley Davidson down in Alabama, and I rode it back to LA when we finished. It took me 4 or 5 days, and I thought it was a fantastic way to sort of decompress, And then all of my decision making was back on my own shoulders at that point. Like, where do I stop? Where do I get petrol? What do I have to eat? All of those things made me sort of a human being again. And I just stuck with it. And then Charlie and I, my friend, were talking about doing a trip to Spain or something. And from when that point I was living in London. And it's great to ride to Spain, that's fine. But I read this book called Jupiter's Travels, written by a guy called Ted Simon. And it changed my life really, because he rode around the world in 1971 or 72, which is when I was born. But he did it on a Triumph, and it took 4 years to do it. And he wrote this beautiful book, Jupiter's Travels. It's a really lovely book to read. You don't have to be into bikes to read it. It's just a great book about the world. And I started talking to Charlie about that. Like, why don't we? My ex-wife was brought up in China, and I thought maybe we'll ride to China, from London. And then I was looking at the map, going, "Oh, what do we do? What do we do when we get there? Just come back?" And so I got a world map, and I was looking at the world map, London, China, and then I just thought, you keep going, and you come on this page over here, you come back to London, and it's pretty much a straight line. And so that became our first trip, Long Way Round, which is available on Apple TV Plus or Apple TV, whatever it's called. And that changed our lives, because we did that in 2004. We did the whole African continent in 2007. We did the Americas in 2019. And then we just did another one that we just finished this summer, which is our 4th trip, which will be on the television next year.
That's exciting. So, tune in. What's the longest one I assume it's
I think Long Way Round was the longest. It was over 20,000 miles. And it was at 4.5 months. Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, we went through some pretty amazing places. We rode through Kazakhstan, which is a fantastically different place, from our sort of cultural understanding. And then we crossed Russia, and we crossed Mongolia, and I loved lots of the first trip. It also was brand new to us. We didn't know really what we were doing, but we had a great time.
Do you have a dream trip that you want to do that you haven't done yet?
I have places I'd like to go back to. I'd love to go back to Mongolia. I met my daughter on the first trip in Mongolia. I met her in this place and adopted her, and she's 23 years old now. And I'd love to go back there with her again and explore Mongolia a little bit. I'd love to go back to Alaska. I loved Alaska. I thought that was so cool. And the northwestern part of Canada I really liked. There's still lots of places in America that I haven't experienced and explored, and I'd love to do that. And I think traveling on a bike is by far one of the greatest ways to get to know anywhere, So yeah, lots more trips to go.
How do you handle the weather? Is like the first question that comes to my brain.
Yeah, well, you just have to sort of, the riding kit you can buy these days is sort of, you're good to go. You've got vents if it's hot, it's already waterproof, and you can put layers on if it's cold. And you just have to be able to stay dry really on a bike. I mean, if it's too cold, you just have to stop. There's no point riding if you're freezing. It's pretty quite dangerous to do. So you stop and you have a cup of coffee and heat up a bit. It's the wet really. You just have to make sure you've got a really good waterproof layer, and then you're all right.
Speaking of imported clothes, what is your favorite costume that you've ever worn in your entire career?
Which one? What?
Christopher Robin.
You see, it's not fair to have favorites. I don't have favorites because it just wouldn't be fair to them, you know. I've loved so many. I'm really lucky. I've loved so much of the work I've done. There's very few movies I've made that I didn't enjoy. There's a couple, but there's not many. And so I don't like to single them out. Really, people ask what's your favorite movie you've been in. I never know what to say. I've loved so many of them. There's films that have been important to me, but in terms of the costume, I mean, Obi-Wan is so iconic. It's just hard to beat that. When I came back to do the series, you know, it had been, like I say, it had been a long time, almost 20 years. And I went down to do some casting with some of the young actors who were in the series. And they wanted me to read scenes with them. We went to the Mandalorian set on a Sunday when they weren't working, and I went to a dressing room, and there was I don't know if it was my original costume, but it was Obi-Wan's costume hanging up, and it stopped me in my tracks. I was like, oh my god. And I put it on again, and I was like, oh my god, the boots were the same pain in the ass to put on that they used to be and stuff. And but anyway, so that one maybe is the most iconic one I've had to wear. But I've been lucky to love most of the stuff I've done, so I wouldn't like to.
If you don't have a favorite role, what do people recognize you for the most, like when you're walking down the street?
People mostly come up to me with my bike trip now because that's me, you know. And I think people, because that's just me being me, and so people are happy to talk about that in a way where I'm not a character or something. Today it's been robots. Everyone's been talking about robots today. I voiced a character in Rodney Copperbottom, and today that's been the main feature of the day. It's interesting.
It's very exciting. It's like a themey day.
Yeah.
When you prepare for a voice role like cricket or Transformer, how is that different from when you prepare for something live action?
Well, that's different because you get to do every line. Generally speaking, the disappointing part about animations is that you tend to do it on your own. Like you go to a studio and it's just you there and the director and the producers, and so you don't often get a chance to actually play the scenes with the other actors, just because of logistics, I guess. But what you do get the chance to is to do that one line over and over and over again until you're all happy with it, you know. Which isn't the same as if you're doing something on a camera. Of course, you do several takes, but you're not honing in to try and make it perfect. And that's what makes it different. That's also, for me, what makes it a bit frustrating, because you end up doing it for a long time, you know, and then like over 2 years, you'll come in, because I think you're there doing animation while you're doing the recording, and then they keep getting you to come back to change lines or to change things. So that goes on for a long time. I like to be in and out, you know, I like to do a job and then I'm on the next one, you know, so.
And then you're on your bike.
And then I'm on my bike, yeah.